I can talk to him at the nerd level, and then I can talk to you at the business level. So when you say you want to do something, not only do I probably get it, or I know the questions to ask to really understand what you're after, but I can probably picture what you want better than you verbalized to me in the first place,
Because you've dealt with it.
yeah, because then I'm going to go and I'm going to build something that's even a little bit better than what you requested, because you requested this much, but if I give you this much, you're going to be blown away.
Hi, I'm Paul Giannamore. I wanted to welcome our new subscribers to the channel. You know, historically, Potomac TV has been focused on business and operational information and interviews for residential and commercial services business owners. But after the publication of the Sell-Side M&A Masterclass last month, my LinkedIn inbox has been inundated with a variety of different requests. So Dylan and I will be sitting down filming more extensive M&A masterclasses, both focusing on the sell side as well as the buy side. I intend to talk about the choice of process, delving deep into M&A psychology, as well as extensive buy side practice, approach, and due diligence. For those of you who have not subscribed, you can click below and subscribe to the channel. Furthermore, we've provided a link here in the description where you can get on our email distribution list. And if you do that, you'll receive an email right in your inbox with our latest publications. Feel free to put a comment below on the types of things you want to see. I mean, this channel is largely driven by you, the viewer, and what you want to see from us. Again, thanks for joining us here at Potomac TV. Todd and Jason, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So Todd, you do a lot of things. Your main gig, though, your main day job is still CEO of Adams Pest up in the Great North there. But today we're going to talk a little bit about Blu Star, which has been somewhat of a side project for you that you've really more recently, I guess, begun to commercialize, right?
Yeah, we started development on it over 10 years ago. We went live on it 9.5 years ago. And we use it in our company, but we sell it to other pest control companies as well. So it occupies a percentage of my time, but I'm more into Adams Pest Control as a day-to-day job for me.
Okay, so Blu Star is a operations software very similar to, in the same, I guess, line as like a Pest Pack, for example. But how did you end up getting into this to begin with?
Well, it really goes back to I was introduced to computers in 7th grade. I actually had a computer programming job in 9th grade for like $35 a program, and wages were much cheaper. But so I've always been interested in computers. I actually got a degree in computer science, and my dad would ask me questions about software. Can you write me an inventory management system? And I really didn't do that till literally kind of after his passing. But in high school, I thought about writing software for the pest control industry, but never did pull the trigger. But got my degree, worked for a couple of Fortune 100 companies in IT, and my dad's partner passed away and he recruited me in. But I can remember in 1994, I went to Pest World in Hawaii, and my dad got me a badge to walk around the floor and look for software that was better than what he had. And I couldn't find anything, but it was 96 that I joined, and I kept looking and kept looking.
What was Adams using back in the mid-90s?
There was a system called Pest Control Systems. He drove to Michigan to buy it off of Griffin Pest, a used system, because they were getting a newer set of hardware. And, you know, it was a PC that was with a hard drive that was the size of a dishwasher. It didn't hold much, but it was something. And so it just wasn't adequate, but we kept looking. And once I got in, we used it for 4 or 5 more years till we found something we thought was better.
And were you ever on Pest Pack?
Yeah. So in 2001, I met Jason, and he was working for Marathon Data Systems at the time, and met the primary owner, Mike Ayers. And I had this vision and had even flown to Chicago to be with other pest control companies. We thought about pooling our money and building our own software. And we just didn't come together enough to do that. But I had a vision of what I thought the pest control software should be like. And then when I met Jason and Mike and what they were going to do with PestPack, I kind of evaluated that year as that was probably the number 2 software in the industry, but I knew it was going to be number 1 and it fit the vision that I had. So I was happy to find the first time for something viable to switch to.
And so how long were you guys on PestPack?
13 years.
13 years. Okay. So then how was Blu Star ultimately born then? So you're on PestPack, you're using it. What made you decide to start? I mean, I know you come from a computer science background. How did this start?
Yeah, so even though I had a computer science background, I was never a developer. I did IT management systems and moved into management. But I have a marketing manager, and his brother was a developer. His brother was out of work, and he said, hey, if you got some work for me, I'll work for you for this much money a month. And it was pretty reasonable. And I'm like, I'll help this guy out. I can afford that. And let's do a little development, dip our toe in the water a little bit. And after 3 months of development, it became pretty apparent we could develop something pretty fast. We could develop our own. And so I committed and hired another programmer. And about a year later, we had Blu Star was born. And we went live March 21st, 2015 on Blu Star. And it was not ready. It was a tad bit of a nightmare, but we had built mobile knowing that mobile, the technician component was extremely important. That had to be reliable. We had to service customers. We can get around things on the back end, but we had to service customers. So we were able to service customers on day one, no problem. The technicians learned it easy. But it was probably 6 to 9 months later where we really felt like we had something. So our goal was to build something better, and so it probably took us 9 months to feel like we were at least at status quo with where we were. And then we just continued to evolve it, make it better and better.
When you first built it, was the intention just to use it at Adams, or did you ultimately, or were you thinking back in those days, I'd like to build something that I can also commercialize?
We did plan on commercializing it. We actually had a booth at Pest World prior to going live. We picked up a client and we took them live. Again, it wasn't really ready or mature enough, but we tried to take them live the end of March, just 2 weeks later from us. And, that was a little bit of a hot mess. So we waited another month and took them live, and they're still a customer today. So we do sell it to others, and we did right from the get-go. So that was part of the plan. It was to leverage, and I'm a very, giving, sort of sharing person. I learned a lot from others in the industry. So I answer questions for people anytime they ask about middle management or technology or whatever. And so I just figured, hey, if we're going to do this, we're going to build something better. Let's share with other pest control companies to make their company better.
And Jason, you joined up with Todd when?
With Todd about 2 years ago, but as he said, originally over 20 years ago. So I was a partner at Marathon Data Systems back in 2000, 2001. At that point we had an older product based on Windows, and the internet was starting to take off. I had just gotten out of school and had learned some things about internet web development. So Mike, the founder, and I decided to create PestPack for the web, and that would allow companies who were running multi-branch operations to be able to share their data without using really slow terminal-based systems to connect to. We had one customer, I remember, who used to drive all over New Jersey with a zip drive, copying data from server in one office, going to the next, and combining it himself at home. So that was the birth of PestPack. I met Todd. He was an early adopter, a big champion of PestPack in those early days. And, knew as well that he had that computer science background, so we had a little rapport in that sense. And then, time went on. PestPack certainly took off. I, remained as the lead developer and manager of that group. And, but I think it was 2010, shortly before Pest World, that you gave me a call and said, hey, just heads up, I'm going to have a booth at Pest World next week. So I appreciated the friendly heads up. And yeah, we didn't cross paths that much in the time to come. We'd see each other once a year here at the show. Fast forward a number of years, obviously PestPack and Marathon became WorkWave and rolled over to some new ownership. I ended up leaving about 5 years ago, and I was very happily not doing anything. And Todd found my long dormant LinkedIn profile, sent me a message and said, how retired are you really? And I thought I was very retired.
You don't seem that old to be very retired.
I don't, and maybe that's why we're sitting here now. But I always enjoyed working with Todd personally and professionally. So we talked about kind of what I was into technologically. PestPack was built. It's been now 23 years. Certainly technology's come a long way. I've tried to keep up with that and interested in some of the more cutting edge things. So I want to introduce that to Todd. I think he had some ulterior motives in terms of, well, maybe Jason can start here, but where do I really want him to end up doing some things? So yeah, it's been about 2 years now that we've been working together on different projects, and maybe started a little more around the edges of Blu Star and the related operations. And now we're really starting to get into adding some really cool and interesting features to the guts of the thing.
I want to talk about that. What are some cool and interesting features? I mean, you've got obviously a tremendous amount of experience historically with PestPack. You probably know all the issues every user has.
As did I.
As does Todd. So let's talk about some of those sorts of things that you guys are doing.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing we first did together in the core of Blu Star, we started off with a GPS system. Todd, I believe it had acquired that from somebody else, and it was a bit of a legacy technology stack. So we started off with that, and I just wanted to kind of demonstrate, here's what I'm interested in technologically. New user interface, serverless backend, just really changing some paradigms. And that worked out nicely. One thing that I was really passionate about in PestPack, and that I thought we always had a chance to do more with, was route optimization, or as we call it now, utilization optimization. Being able to very easily schedule massive amounts of work with the click of a button, and then just dealing with edge cases on an exceptional basis. So instead of laying routes out from scratch, let the computer do the heavy lifting, and then let the people who have the tribal knowledge of the customer base and need to finesse things focus on that, instead of spending hours and hours doing the uninteresting part of the work. So I mean, that's very much what I'm all about. I think in general is where can we automate tremendous amount of work that people end up having to do that isn't really their, even if it's their core competency, it's not the value they're bringing to the table. And that goes for software development as well. We're using AI in our development processes. You'll hear some people say, oh, AI is going to replace all software developers. I don't think that's the case. I think software development, like any other job, has 80% of stuff that we just know how to do and is a little bit rote. And then the 20% of the things that are really interesting and require creative solutions. So that's what I'm trying to bring to the features that we create, and also the process by which we create them.
If I remember, Pam over at Griffin, one of her biggest issues historically on some of these legacy systems was the route optimization. That used to drive her crazy. And I would imagine you face the same.
Yeah, she actually went outside of PestPack and hired her own company to integrate in, and she was militant about it. I mean, she is probably the operations czar of the industry at the time. So she was very good, probably had very high net profit as a result of it. And there's other companies that are very big on it. And we were very strong at Blu Star on routing and optimization tools, scheduling tools. We've been told that by others who've evaluated many different platforms. We're strong on that. But we didn't quite have that tool that could lay out the whole month for one or more technicians quickly. So we've been able to take our office staff from laying out a month. It might take them 5 hours of time to really lay out a nice tight schedule with our other tools. to about 5 minutes. So, I mean, that's a 99% productivity kind of improvement just on the office side. And then the resulting schedule is so much better. But, in the computer terms, we call it like the traveling salesman problem, but it's even more complex than a traveling salesman problem because there's all sorts of constraints about the technician's working hours. And do they have events like personal events? Do they have professional events? They got to be at a meeting. They got to pick up a truck here. Where do they start the day? Where do they end their day? There's a whole lot of constraints. And so what Jason, with his ideas and our ideas and sort of our stack of technology, we've been able to really build something that he was able to, the first instance a few months ago, he was able to introduce to our schedulers, 3 schedulers, taught them in about a half an hour, and they were off and running. So because this tool has many different, what us computer people would call use case scenarios, you can use it for scheduling a whole month. You can use it for having a pool of orders like vector services, mosquito services, and you can reassign that to 5 technicians that are available. And next month, maybe there's only 4 technicians available. You can take that pool and assign it to 4. You can, hey, somebody left the route halfway through a month. They're out on work comp. They've quit something. And so they got, 100 orders left in the month. You can redistribute those 100 orders to other people. So, I mean, each one of those is a different use case scenario. And rather than building one really complex tool that handles every use case, ours kind of really makes it simple and easy to use for the particular use case you're in.
Over at Adams, you're roughly, it's a 60-40 split between commercial and residential. Do I remember that right?
Yes.
And I know, just having been in the industry for a long time, I know there's certain software packages that are better for commercial. Some are better, almost exclusive for residential. You've built that, I would imagine, with your own business in mind, thinking about the residential use cases versus the commercial, I would imagine. How robust is Blu Star when you think about everything that has to go along with dealing with like high-end commercial accounts? Do you deal with like the documentation required within the system?
Oh yeah, there's so many different requirements by your commercial customers out there that we've really built a lot of power into our software. Like I said, I know where the bones are buried in our prior system. I know some of the weaknesses. So anytime we were building out some new part of Blu Star, we went and looked, how can we make this better? And so we use that concept and make it better for a variety of situations. So it's strong and powerful yet flexible. So yeah, we can handle different billing situations for commercial customers. Some commercial customers, you really want to send them email invoices or email statements, but some are like, no, I won't take an email invoice. It's got to be a PDF of an invoice.
Yep.
It's just a flag. We change it. Boom. That customer's always getting a PDF going forward. Just different things like that. Just make it the back-end office staff, the admin staff, so much more efficient when they can satisfy the masses but deal with the exceptions in a nice way, as opposed to picking through all sorts of stuff and pulling out the exceptions manually. So we do a lot with that. Barcoding, scanning. We've interfaced many different sensor systems. We're currently working with a couple of sensor systems that are here today. So, we service a variety of commercial customers, and a lot of it's reporting. Multi-housing, we got some great stuff with multi-housing, mall management stuff. So, every different industry seems to have some unique requirements, and by having our own software, we're able to build and customize for those industries.
What size business is Blu Star most appropriate for? And I ask that question because sometimes, you see a lot of the newer upstart software companies tend to focus on like the underserved lower end of the market, which quite frankly are typically the most painful customers to possibly deal with. This was built on the backbone to a certain degree of Adams, which is a PCT top 100 company. So what type of company is this most appropriate for?
Today, our minimum is kind of 5 users. We could take somebody that was even a smaller company, but you're going to pay a 5-user minimum. Breaking news, we will probably at some point support startups, but for now, it's a 5-user minimum kind of thing. But otherwise, we kind of have a version that we're even willing to white label it for, a top 20, top 25 sort of company that says, we're tired of paying this particular company for our software, and we're tired of the support or the slow development or whatever their issues might be. We actually want to have our own, but rather than starting from scratch, can we buy a copy of Blu Star and we can go our own direction? We're open to those discussions. Or if they want to partner with us and we can help build it out so it meets their needs. Meanwhile, that benefits us because we probably, benefit from the same sort of development. But otherwise, 5 to 250 users is probably our sweet spot right now.
When I think about, at least half the companies out there hate the software they're using, but it's so painful to switch that they never really make the switch until it's like, I can't go on any longer. So how do you deal with something like that in terms of just the switching cost? And
Well,
Let me just give a perspective I had when I first saw Blu Star software, right? So, coming from Pest, I had seen many of, the companies that you referenced kind of entering at the lower end of the market. Flashy, modern, but didn't have all the features there, certainly especially for commercial work. So coming in to work with Todd, I wasn't sure quite what he had. It's like, did he build something that's just suitable for atoms and wouldn't work more broadly? So what I discovered very quickly was like, oh, this is a complete software package. It's all there. It's all in the box. I was impressed and a little surprised when I first saw that. But something else I saw very quickly was that all these metaphors of how the software packages work, how the industry works, the features that you need, renewals, termite tracking, barcoding, there's not a terrible amount of variability between these things. So you take somebody who was running Pest for 13 years, I think you said it was, knew it inside and out. He says he knows where the bodies were buried. I'm the one who dug the graves. So yeah.
right.
So I think there's a particular value proposition to looking at a transition from Pest to Blu Star. I think it's going to be very familiar to a lot of people because of Todd's experience. This has nothing to do with my being here. This all, what you created predates my involvement. But yes, it's painful to switch, but are these systems terribly different from each other? Probably not. And then, you've got the answers to the questions that Todd asked himself about, well, what don't I like and how can we do that better? So it's a lot of the same concepts, just refined a little bit to smooth out some of those rough edges.
So, and I'll take a different approach, and I could talk quite a while about this, but first of all, people have a fear of switching, and it's based usually on change and change management. So I, as a pest control company owner, can give advice to that company switching on how to manage that change, because I've been there, I've done that a few different times, and I've seen it played out. So that's one, but it starts back earlier in the sales process. Some companies have a sales process where they really want to, meet with somebody, demo, close the sale within 24 hours. That's a goal. That's not our goal. Ours starts with a discovery meeting. So if I'm saying, hey, Paul's Pest Control, you're interested in our software, I'm going to have a meeting where I'm going to ask you questions for about an hour to find out if we're a fit for you. And if we're not, I'm going to tell you, what, we don't have that. I'm an open, honest kind of guy. I think you know that about me because we've had a relationship for a while. I'm going to say, we don't have that. I can build that. That's going to take me 3 months or whatever, and I'm going to give you an accurate timeline. So maybe next fall is a better time to talk about this if you can hold on. So it starts in discovery and making sure we're a fit. Once we get into it, one of our goals early on 10 years ago was to build something that was easy to learn, easy to use. That was in our marketing. It was when we had a trade show booth here for 5 years. That was everything we said. So a lot of what we do is easy to learn, easy to use. There's documentation. Some systems don't have documentation. There's help. We have unlimited help. You can call us. We'll answer the phone. You can send us an email. You'll get an email back quickly. We have a ticketing system. From day one, 10 years ago, we built a support ticket system in. So all those things help. But more recently, we've used AI in Blu Star, and we've given it skills. So you can now ask, Maxwell is the name of our AI chatbot within Blu Star. You can ask Maxwell, tell me about Frank Chavez, and it'll tell you who his manager is, his scheduler is, his email, phone number, whatever. You can ask it questions any different way you want in English, and it'll answer. And then you can say, where is it? And it'll communicate with our GPS system and tell you what address Frank is at. And then you can ask it about, how do I process a payment in Blu Star? So if you're a new user to Blu Star, or you're a smaller company where you're in the office half the time, you're on the field. Like I have a 5-user company where it's 2 owners and 3 technicians, no office staff. And the one owner handles the office stuff, but he's out in the field a lot. He's been running for many years. And so, he just needs to know what he needs to know. And he's trouble-free as a customer because he knows how to use the system. But originally, he might be able to use AI to ask questions instead of emailing off for a support question and getting a response back in a timely manner, but nothing like typing something on screen and getting an answer right now.
That's great. That's interesting. I didn't realize that you had that feature. When did you add that?
We just started building it in October this month.
Yep.
And we've already given it all these different skills, and we'll be giving it more skills and rolling that out here in November and December.
But I think that's an awesome thing to be able to type in and say, where's John Smith? And it tells you, and that's great.
And to play the computer nerd, but play the business owner answer to sort of that is there's a lot more going on than it seems. You're not just going off to some LLM and figuring it out. It's having to figure out, all right, what vehicle is Frank driving? Gets that information. Then it has to talk to the GPS system, says, where is that vehicle? And then it comes back with the latitude and longitude. Then it has to go to somewhere else to say, what's the address of that latitude and longitude? And all that happens very, very quickly, just in a second or so. And all of a sudden you get the information about where that technician is, what vehicle he's driving, and the address he's at.
And not just limited to information about employees either. It's going to have many skills pertaining to the customer base. So you pull up a customer, they're on the phone, this will be able to tell you, either you're asking it a question or it can push the information to you. What's up with this customer? We've got recent communications, we've got the technician comments from prior services. Anything you need to know about the customer that might be captured in a few different places, Maxwell can aggregate and very quickly give the CSR that perspective of, all right, here's the capsule snapshot of what I need to know about this person while I'm talking to them.
So that's one way we're using AI. He mentioned we're using AI in development, and we're using AI in at least 3 other ways already. Probably won't get into it here, but we're trying to figure out how we can use AI to make Blu Star better and make pest control companies better so that they can scale and add millions in revenue without adding a corresponding, headcount. You still are going to need technicians in the field, but what if we could, add 5 million in revenue and have the same level of admin contact center staff? I mean, that would really drive the bottom line, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And how does Blu Star work out in the field?
It's a mobile app, so it does sync. So it can run when you're in the middle of nowhere, or you're in the middle of a steel building with, not very good cell, or you can't connect to the customer's Wi-Fi. But you can scan, you can do a whole lot. Mobile is a very robust piece of software. I mean, we've come out with 40 major versions over the last 10 years. So we come out with a new version about every 3-4 months. We're probably slowing down a little bit because there's not as much left to do with mobile right now. It's very mature.
Cross-platform, Android and iOS.
Yes.
Yep. For Adams, do you guys use it on iPhones, or are you putting it on iPads, or where's it residing for your firm?
Most of our technicians are running Android. Most of our managers are running iOS. We do have a few people who like the bigger display of a tablet, like an iPad or a larger Android device. And in the last year, we have rebuilt what we call desktop, the Blu Star that the office uses. We've redone the user interface, the user experience, cleaner, simpler, again, easier to learn, better performance, better intelligent search results with deep dive options. So again, kind of using a lot of smarts of how we've done it. We're one of the only software packages that I know of where we actually track how users are using it. So we could go back over the last 2 years and say, what's the most popular programs that people are using within our system or tools? And we've fine-tuned those, and we've made the user experience more responsive, which means the desktop application works good on a 22-inch monitor or a laptop or a tablet or a phone now. Whereas before, some of those screens looked pretty bad on a phone. So now if you're a manager who's in the office or an owner who's in the office one day, but you're in the field the next, but you need to do something, some office-like function, you can do that in the field with the web version now much better than you could before. And that's a limitation sometimes is, you get on small screens and it's just a pain to be scrolling left and right and up and down. Now it's responsive is the technological term. And so we've spent about a year kind of improving that whole user interface. So we've invested a lot just in the last year. Even though we've used AI, we've added developers.
When I think about, it's been a while since I looked at Blu Star, but one of the things struck me was it's very lightweight and intuitive from a graphical user interface perspective, vis-a-vis Serve Suite and Pest Pack. And I haven't seen those for a while, but I used to get on those and it would make my head hurt, Jason. Like that thing was like Pest. I just like, I don't know what the hell's going on. All these menus and
computers were different 20 years ago.
Yeah, I get it. But it's like it was built 25 years ago and it kind of stayed the same for a long time, right?
Well, a former CEO once promised a group I was in that they were going to redo the database. And that was like 2006. And to my knowledge, that really hasn't occurred since. But we were a user and we were pushing to update some things, some of the weaknesses. But that's just not the direction they've chose. They've bought other packages, they've bought other platforms. They're still a good company. They're still good software. They're number one probably. And they're very viable. But it just wasn't for us anymore. And so, I'll give you a database example. You got 5 fields, 2 of which are typically used for technicians, 2 of which are used for salespeople, and the 5th one usually isn't used by anybody. And when we built Blu Star, we said, we go on cleanouts where we send a whole bunch of people to do a roach cleanout or a bedbug cleanout of an apartment building. And we want to be able to have everybody logged into that order, one order, do the service, go into this apartment, log the materials they use, log the notes, take pictures, note conditions, and have all that tie up together to an invoice and communication and all that. So we have accurate reporting because you can send 20 technicians to a place and they can all log their activities. A lot of times, a lot of these systems, you're limited to 1 technician per order or 2 technicians per order. And that just doesn't work for us. It doesn't work for our commercial customers. It doesn't work for really good, accurate record keeping. I don't know how that gets by with some states because they want to see who was there, and you don't have the data in the system, so you can't produce that report unless you enter it into notes. Like also here was Paul and Jason and whatnot.
Do you see Blu Star in allied industries other than Pest?
We've developed a quality assurance product because we've have some commercial customers that looked at what we were doing and they were like, man, this one particular customer, they were going around inspecting their own properties and they were taking notes and taking pictures on their phone and every day going back to the main office, uploading those, putting them into one long Google Doc, and then communicating it back to that location's facility manager to address those issues. And then there was no accountability. And so they were basically documented 3 times, once in the field, once in Google Docs, and then once in sending out an email, with no accountability, and one long document for years and years, with 3 inspectors all sharing that document. And they looked at what we were doing for them, and they're like, can we have that? And so it was more a matter of us developing the ability to turn off features.
Yeah.
It wasn't that we needed to do anything for them. They didn't need billing. They didn't need any of that stuff, but they needed the accountability. They needed that communication. And so they viewed it as, instead of doing 3 inspections a day, they could do 4, and they didn't have to go back to the office to do anything. And so, yeah, we built that as a separate product. We've got some other products that are coming that are ancillary. We do have a GPS solution, as Jason mentioned. So we do have some other stuff that's now or in the works, because of, we've got that in our arsenal. It's just a matter of packaging it.
What's the roadmap for this look like, Jason, here in the coming years?
Well, we've got a lot of ideas we've been kicking around to enhance what we've got, but to something I think you kind of alluded to earlier about software packages, you can just kind of keep adding to them and adding to them. They become very difficult to manage. Also looking at ways that we can simplify and synergize some things. So we talked about the routing optimization piece earlier. Right now, as it stands today, we have that optimization piece for kind of the month ahead, or for redistributing things within a month. There's another very powerful feature in Blu Star called Planner Map, which is what you're using more on the day-to-day basis. Well, rather than having those 2 things coexist and have kind of their respective use cases, let's figure out a way that we can take the best of both of those and create a single tool potentially. Committing Todd to things here in real time, he might not be agreeable with. So that's just one example of things I think we can do. A lot of work's been done lately. The new user interface, again, not something I was involved in, but I don't want to downplay the excellent team of several developers that Todd has behind him there. Really interested in pushing the AI piece forward. There's Maxwell that we're talking about. Embryonic right now, just been working on it for a couple of weeks, but super powerful already. And we see how we can leverage that, not just to provide that AI to the customers, but again, to use AI in the development process to accelerate our ability to iterate on and to do that.
And we've been meeting individually, like privately here, showing them what we're up to. We've got a couple of sales lined up. We don't want to sell 100 customers a year. We're very selective. We just want a handful, because we don't want to, upset the apple cart and over deliver or over promise and under deliver. So when we meet with people, we're taking notes and we're getting their feedback on what we're showing them. They're like, if you could do this, or in my business, this is how we do that. And, you don't quite support that yet. And nothing else I've found supports that yet. But if you could support that, that would be great. And we're like, yeah, we could do that. I mean, Jason and I, we get together then later at night and we're like, he made these 3 suggestions. How long would that take you? And he goes, yeah, I could probably do that in a week. I'm like, let's make that a priority. Let's flex a little and show this prospective customer that we can build that in a week. And then he's going to go, wow, they listen and they can respond and they can do it in a timely manner, not add it to some project list that maybe a year or 2 from now they'll get to.
Right. And there's more to that conversation we have with those customers and prospects, which is not just what do you need, what do you want, but let me understand, what are you trying to accomplish? Why do you need that? Why does your need diverge perhaps from what we've already created for other customers we have? And how do we solve this in a way that is holistic for everybody and doesn't become a patchwork of whether it's customizations for people or just multiple ways to do the same thing? To be very mindful of how to leverage the business experience, the industry expertise, along with the software development.
And one of the things that makes Blu Star unique, or me unique, is I can talk to him at the nerd level, and then I can talk to you at the business level. So when you say you want to do something, not only do I probably get it, or I know the questions to ask to really understand what you're after, but I can probably picture what you want better than you verbalized to me in the first place,
Because you've dealt with it.
yeah, because then I'm going to go and I'm going to build something that's even a little bit better than what you requested, because you requested this much, but if I give you this much, you're going to be blown away, because I can then turn around and communicate that to the developers, and say, hey, this is what we're looking for, and this is kind of the end goal. And if we can do this in a way that's flexible, so it works for Paul's pest control and it works for Adam's pest control, even better. Because I don't like to build customizations for Paul's pest control that doesn't work for anybody else. I want to build it in a way that, if anything, it's an option you can turn on or turn off, but that way I can support it with less support staff and support it really well documented going forward.
Well, I mean, look, why I really wanted to chat with you guys today is I've got the business guy, I've got a former lead developer for one of the big softwares in the space. And although you guys are focused on commercializing this, that's not the only goal. The goal here is to build this for Adams, build a quality product that's durable, incorporating AI, and then develop this over time. So many people get into the software game and want to get 1,000 customers as quickly as possible, not support it. The thing blows up, turns around, closes, gets sold, but you guys are doing it the right way. And I think what you're developing is very special. How can folks track you guys down to further the discussion?
Well, our software website is blustarsoftware.com, and Blue is BLU. So we make no bones about it. Adams Pest Control owns a company called Collaborative Services. Collaborative is a made-up word. It's collaborate and competitive. And the idea is, if I can collaborate with other pest control companies, each of us can be more competitive. And so that's kind of the genesis of it. So Adams owns Collaborative. Collaborative is really the developer of the software, the GPS, and anything else we do. So we're totally upfront about it, who owns it. I have competitors in my marketplace that are using my software, but they trust us 100% with their data. I have no need to snoop and stuff like that, but I'm at the developer level, so I can support stuff. So even once in a while, I'll go in and pull reports for our clients to say, hey, do you know that this is going on? This is your 3-year trend? Because sometimes owners are busy. They don't know what reports to go and run. So sometimes I'll even run them and send it to them. Just, hey, you're having a good year. Did you know that?
Yeah. Well, look, I'm not an expert in this, but I've seen what, we've walked through a demo a few times. I've seen what you guys are doing, and it looks really cool. So I encourage folks to reach out to you to learn more. And I appreciate you joining me here on stage today. Thanks very much. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, and thanks to my team back home for developing a great product. We're very much a big team effort. We've got front-end people and back-end people and support people, and I just want to thank my team back home.
It's a big team effort, but it's also still a small team effort, right? It's a little more like things were maybe a while ago when we could move and evolve very quickly, and kind of own things in a truly agile way.
Yeah, agile. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, fellas.
Yep. Thanks, Paul.